This is a conversation with Quincy Swain for the Kentucky Marriage Equality and Religious Liberty Oral History Project. We are in the studio room of Breckenridge Hall on Morehead State's campus located in Rowan County, Kentucky. It's June 24th, 1 p.m., 2016. My name is Dakota Barr. First of all, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today, Quincy.
No problem.
I'd like to start with some biographical information, such as where you were born and where you grew up.
I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, in the city of Shively, which is one of the many cities inside of Louisville.
Okay. If you could just tell me about your childhood for a bit.
Well, I was the youngest of three. Both of my siblings were born in the 1980s. I was born in the 90s. So it was kind of weird growing up because I felt kind of weird because I was so light and my family was, they had like tan and everything. So I felt a little bit like an outcast, growing up. And then whenever I went to school, people would always be like, "Oh, so you're mixed, right?" And I'm just like, I don't know what that means, So I really started to embrace my weird side in the 8th grade whenever Lady Gaga came out, and she was just like, "Embrace your weirdness." And I was like, you know what, that's right. I was like, I'm gonna embrace my weirdness. If I want to listen to pop music, I'll listen to pop music. I just didn't care what my parents said about me, just like, "Oh, well, you're supposed to like listen to this type of music." It's like, well, I don't like to listen to that type of music.
And what about your religious upbringing or ideological background? Well,
religion is very tricky because I went to many churches growing up. At one point, when I first started going to church, I went to Immaculate Heart, but then I also went to a Lutheran church. But I was raised Christian, Catholic, Lutheran, and my mom wants me to be Baptist, but I was just like, no. And now people just use the Bible to hate, so I'm just like, I can't get the support, organized religion. So I'm just like, I have my beliefs. I don't believe that I'm going to hell, and I'm just trying to be a good person.
So do you currently belong to a church?
I don't belong to a church.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a student worker at Morehead State University.
I'd like to begin by asking you how you first became involved in the marriage equality movement.
I was at work, and I know that we have political talks sometimes on the 4th floor of Camden and Carroll, but I came down one time and a fellow worker of mine, Dakota Barr, said, "Hey, Quincy, do you want to go protest tomorrow because Kim Davis isn't handing out marriage license?" And I was like, sure, and I guess he wasn't expecting me to be so easygoing about it. He was just like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll go down and protest with you." It's like, "Well, Quincy, if I ask you to marry me and they actually say yes, I might have to just back out." And I was just like, okay, that's cool,
When you first heard the U.S. Supreme Court's decision that marriage equality was the law of the land, how did you react?
I just kind of felt like I had died because, we talk about things all the time, such as legalization of gay marriage, legalization of marijuana, prohibition. I guess, it's just, you say things like, well, I'm sure that they'll legalize it one day, but not while I'm alive. And then here I am 20 years old, and it's just like, oh yeah, the gays and, everyone in the LGBT community, no matter what, they can get married. And I was just like, really? Well, it felt unreal because it was just like everywhere in the United States you can get married if you're gay. And it's just like, really? It was kind of unbelievable, but shocking, unbelievable,
How did you first respond when you heard that the Rowan County Clerk was not issuing marriage licenses, despite the court's order?
I just felt like she needed a stern talking to and tolerance. But then when she denied it the second time, defying the Supreme Court and everything, I really just wanted to march down there and just like shake her and say, "What are you doing?" It's like going against the IRS. You just don't go against things like that,
So what exactly was your involvement in the movement?
I was a protester. I don't really feel like I had a big part in the protest or anything. I just came festive. I helped create the hashtag. My friend Dakota Barr said, "Don't delay, marry gay." But then I said, we're not fighting for gay rights, we're fighting for equal rights. So I said, don't delay, marry today. So, and that was the first day of the protest. And I just felt a sense of community coming together to stand up and fight for equality. And that I think is something that we all need to embody, instead of just, oh, I'm out here trying to do this for myself, I'm out here trying to do that for myself. If you're not going to stand up for nobody, then if nobody stood up for anybody, then why, nothing would get done if anyone didn't stand up for anybody. And I think that's the difference between being a leader and a boss.
Would you consider yourself an activist before these protests?
Would I consider myself an activist before these protests? I've been a free spirit pretty much my entire life. I've been to prides, I've been to gay bars, I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life. I feel like everything that I've done before now was just getting me ready to become an activist. So I'm very accepting of everything. In Louisville, everyone does their own thing, everyone believes different stuff. And whenever I came here, just for someone to be like, oh, you're black, like, that's weird. And, I just take a deep breath and say, they just don't know, or, maybe they're just not used to being around black people or something. They just don't know how to react. So I wouldn't consider myself an activist before this. I'd consider myself a fighter, because at the time I was a little rebellious and rambunctious. I'm still rambunctious, a little bit rebellious now, but no, I'd say before this, it was just getting me ready to become an activist.
What would you classify the environment like at the protest? Did you feel safe or unsafe?
I felt safe at the protest, but as for now, I would still protest today. It's just after the Orlando shootings, I'm kind of iffy. I mean, I just don't even want to go out to a regular bar,
Would you consider your tactics at the protests effective?
That, I'm not sure, because all tactics, I think, seem a little bit ineffective, but you are raising awareness and you're showing people that you will not stand for this. In the 1960s, Dr. King would stage sit-ins, and people would sit in at bars, and the people would throw coffee in their face and spit at them and scratch them and slap them, and it just seems like you're not doing any good. But when you look back, it's just like, if you hadn't have done that, if you hadn't raised awareness, and possibly if things hadn't gotten so out of control, then maybe we wouldn't have gotten results that we have today.
What was your goal going into the protest?
My goal was to get marriage equality in the land of Rowan County, but we got Miss Kim Davis into jail. And at first it was like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of cool, but then you have to stop and think, that's not what we wanted. We wanted marriage equality. We didn't want to send, I guess, an innocent woman to jail, So my goal was to get marriage equality here in Rowan County, which still seems kind of iffy, because if you get on Facebook, it's like Kim Davis doesn't want her names on those marriage licenses. And my thing about that is, if you don't like working at McDonald's, you can just quit, So in her case, if she doesn't want to sign these marriage licenses, she can go work at McDonald's.
What difference do you think was made by your involvement in the protest?
Let's see, what difference do I think was made by my involvement? As I said, I don't think that I played a huge part, but I've made a lot of friends, was invited to a lot of weddings, didn't get to make any of them, but let's see. Can I come back to that one?
So you've kind of formed a community with these people who you protested with.
Yeah, I formed a community, very nice people. They're willing to help me out and everything.
Would you have done anything differently?
No. No, I wouldn't have done anything differently. Everything I do, I have a reason behind.
Did you stay active after this? Did you get involved in any organizations or?
I'm currently involved in Morehead Pride, but other than that, because of my major and having to do 4 shows last school year, I really didn't have time outside of class and rehearsals to join any other organizations.
Tell me about Pride.
We are starting over, so I really don't know a lot about Pride, but I feel pretty good about it.
Do you think that an event such as Pride is necessary in a community like ours?
So I get this question a lot. It's just like, why do we have Black Lives Matter? Why do we have LGBT Pride? Why do we have an LGBT community? Why do we have a Black community? It's it's gotten to the point here today where it's just like some individuals, the majority white, the white majority, they say, why do we need something like that? And it's just something people say after a trial is forgive but never forget. And I think that's what we're trying to say with the Black Lives Matter movement, with an LGBT movement. It's just like people have been prejudiced against the communities, and we're not just going to say, oh, well, I'm sorry, and just call it a day. We're just going to say, this is where we came from, and this is where we are now. We fought for this, and don't forget why we fought for this. Because sometimes I know because growing up in public schools and the Black community and everything, everyone, Rosa Parks and everyone else, they fought for equal rights among black citizens of the United States of America. And some kids, they just don't care, and then they go off and just do crazy stuff. And honestly, sometimes you just have to stop and think before you do something like crazy, because now, even now, like the shooter at the Orlando, they're saying that he was a Muslim and he was part of ISIS and that he shot up everyone and that he was just crazy because he was Muslim, and that he represents an entire religion and country and race. But that's not true. Like, that person acted on his own intentions, and I'm gonna go back. So he acted on his own intentions. So back to what I was saying, the original, the kid that does the crazy thing, that does whatever it is that everyone looks at the Black community, that person is acting on their own will. They're acting on their own thoughts, actions, everything. That's all them. They're not speaking for the Black community. They're not doing anything like that.
Regarding Kim Davis, the county clerk, do you think she was the best person to represent the cause of religious liberty?
I do not want to say that this is about religious liberty, because I think the way you live your life and your religion are very similar. Because if you say, do you stand for free love? You're obviously going to say, my religion. So my thing is, this was not a religious thing. This is not a religious thing at all. People get on Facebook and they're ranting about, oh, well, this is all about religion. It's like, no, she's not doing her job and they're still paying her. Like, if I went to my job and I didn't do my job, then, I would get fired. But since she's a elected official, she's not doing her job because it's against her religion. Like I said, she can go work at McDonald's. So, no, she's not the right person to represent religious liberty, because this was not a religious thing. Yeah, it's great that she's a great Christian or whatever, but, we need to find your battle. Miss Kim Davis, we need to find your battle.
Do you think that she deserved to be imprisoned?
I don't think she deserved to be imprisoned, because she could have just quit, as I said. And I think, if we're talking about religious freedom and everything, she committed a sin. She was too prideful just to say, I'm going to step down.
So if you don't think that she deserved to be in prison, do you believe that she deserved any form of punishment?
I think she deserved... As I said before, I think she just deserves a good stern talking to. You know, I just don't think she understands. And if it's, I just can't support their sinful ways. And I'm just like, excuse me, but you really can't take, you know, you can't go to the bathroom without committing a sin, really, in the Bible.
What were your thoughts when she was released from jail?
My thoughts were, I hope that she does go and do her job, and if not, I guess I'm going to go out and protest again. But in all honesty, I really just wanted to go say, excuse me, ma'am, but I really just need to talk to you. I would just like to sit her down and talk to her one-on-one. And if she's going to give me that matrimony is between a man and a woman, you know, stuff, I'm going to say, excuse me, but if that's true, why would God give us free will? You know, I mean, I don't mean to bash people's religion, but, you know, it's, when you're growing up, you're not supposed to question things, but when you don't question things, like, if there's such a thing as possession, you know, obviously there might be an afterlife or something like that, but you know, you're going to question that. You know, if you lived in a haunted house, you're going to question, why is my house haunted, you know? But what's the question?
What were your thoughts upon her release?
Okay, so where did I go with that? So questioning. Okay, so questioning, poltergeist, haunted house, you're going to question. So I'm not trying to bash anyone's religion, so it's, I don't know. Can we do this one more time?
After Kim Davis was released from jail, there was a large rally outside of the prison.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, I feel like those people who gathered at that rally didn't know the entire story, you know? Like I said about the people on Facebook thinking that it's about marriage equality, about religious freedom. It's not. It's about her defying the Supreme Court. And people are just like, no, but her religious right. And I'm just like, no, that's not what this is about. She's defying the land. And she's also sinning against the Bible, because doesn't the Bible say, obey the law of the land? So if the law of the land can support the LGBT community's sinful nature, I'm sure she can too.
Did you think that your local elected officials handled the situation appropriately?
No, not at all. Not at all. This spiraled completely out of control, and I feel like the elected officials here in Rowan County kind of just sat back and just watched it all happen.
Can you elaborate a little further on that?
The mayor of Morehead is kind of a jerk, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, he is kind of a jerk. And the thing is, I thought he was a pretty cool guy the first time I met him. He bought me pizza for cleaning up after the flood here in Morehead, and then he's gonna snub me just because I'm fighting for someone else. I'm just like, I helped you and I'm helping someone else. You know, you can't pick and choose who you want to help, you know, because the Bible says something about if you ignore me in front of your friends, I'll ignore you in front of my Father, you know. So my mom always used to say, I hate to not give that bum any money, because that might be the Lord in disguise or whatever. So I'm just like, hey, I'll do whatever I can help, because that just might be the Lord in disguise, even though I kind of don't believe, but I'm an existentialist, if anything. But, what's the question?
Do you believe your local elected officials handled this matter appropriately?
Okay, so, I feel like they should have stepped in and said something, you know. I mean, I helped him out. We help each other out here in Morehead, and he just sat by and watched that happen.
As you may know, Morehead has a fairness ordinance. Do you think that should have had any effect on the decisions of our local elected officials?
Yes, because it's okay to run for something, but I just want you to know like what the job entails, and if you can't follow the rules. I mean, I'm an actor and we have a contract, and if we can't abide by the contract, then sorry, I guess I'll see you around, you know? So I feel like it should be the same with elected officials and everything, which they seem to do a pretty good job about it, but then there are things behind closed doors that you don't know about. And I don't know. I mean, just follow your job. I mean, sometimes like a little break here and a little break there. I'm not endorsing breaking the rules or anything, but if it's all in fairness and equality, I feel like you could bend the rules just a little bit, but don't make a habit out of it.
When this issue arose, many news agencies came to town, including the mass media, not just local media, but we had large news agencies here. How did you react to that?
Well, I figured CNN and all the other mass media would come, but then we get BuzzFeed and, you know, popular sites like that, MTV. I've seen articles on MTV. I didn't get to talk to anyone from MTV, but I just said, wow, you know, a lot of people came down here to little old Rowan County. Maybe Rowan County can progress just a little bit more, you know, from seeing all the love and caring, you know, coming to here to this small town. But question.
Mass media.
So, the mass media, I don't know. That's just all I have to say about the mass media.
Do you believe the issue deserved the attention it got?
Yeah, because you had that other Davis guy, Casey Davis or whoever. We had him, and I don't think that they made such a big of a splash as Kim Davis did here in Rowan County. And I think the reason that it made such a big deal here was because Kim Davis looks like, you know, a God-fearing woman. You know, she's got the long hair in the bun, and she wears the dresses, you know, and she doesn't wear makeup, I don't think. So I think that's why. And Casey Anthony, he's like this buff guy or whatever. Not Casey Anthony, Casey Davis, my bad. He's like this big buff guy, you know, and people are just like, oh, I don't want to mess with that guy, you know. But I am glad that it got the attention it did, but at the same time, I don't think that I don't think the Bible was right. I don't think that the people on Kim Davis's side was right when they said, I don't think you're gonna like the world you see whenever everyone is equal. Because you know why that everything's crazy right now? It's because like you're jumping to conclusions over someone else's lifestyle. That's none of your business.
Do you think that this attention or that this issue was handled properly by political leaders on the national level?
I don't think anything really has went right after the events of the protest, because now, I mean, we do have rules to break down the new amendments or whatever they have against the LGBT community, because all someone has to do is just get upset and sue. But that's going to take more time, you know, and maybe that's time we need for people to learn about accepting others and tolerance. Or maybe we just need to go ahead and integrate, you know, like we just need to go ahead and get the LGBT community out there. You know, I just don't like for people to go out into the world and be afraid. That's no way to live, you know, to be a recluse, you know, especially in this economy. You know, you're going to have to go out and do your own thing, and you can't live in fear. So I do not think that the higher up officials have handled this situation correctly, because it has just been knocking down all the protesting that I feel we've done, you know, all the protesting that we fought for equality, and we start to get some equal rights, but then elected officials started putting up laws saying we don't want to serve the LGBT community, you know.
What are your opinions on the outcomes of the marriage equality movement?
I'm glad that people can get married here in the United States now. But I feel like it kind of came at the wrong time. I hate to say maybe 10 years more, 5 years more, but you know, I just don't think now was the right time. So close to like another election year. But hey, maybe if it didn't happen now, it never would happen.
Would you call your efforts a victory or a failure?
They're still going. My efforts are, I'm still fighting to, let's see, my efforts, I wouldn't consider them a victory or a failure yet, because I probably wouldn't consider them a failure until we have like nuclear war, because, you know, like the Orlando shooting, yes, that's a setback, but if we had like nuclear war and like there was no like law of the land or anything, and nobody really had could communicate with each other, I would call that a failure if it was over marriage equality. But if it was the LGBT community is out, no pun intended, and in the community not living in fear, you don't hear many hate crimes, and when I say many hate crimes, I mean like one every like 5 years, you know, like you can't completely abolish something like that. I would call that a success.
How has this experience changed you?
Well, how has this experience changed me? Well, how has this experience changed me? That's a good question. I guess I'll have to wait and see.
Do you believe Rowan County has become closer together or further apart because of this issue?
I feel like it's gonna come further apart, because yes, Morehead's a small town, Rowan County's a small county, but I felt before the protests and everything, you could ask anyone anything, but now it feels like everyone's kind of living in fear, and everyone has their own opinion. Everyone's either living in fear or they have their own opinion. So everyone's not talking to each other for a reason. Either they're in fear or they just are prideful.
Do you believe the debate over religious liberty and LGBTQ plus equality is over?
No. It'll never be over. Because everyone reads their Bible, or they read the Quran, or they have their religion and they have their faith, or they just think that it's gross, you know, and then you have people who are just like, well, you know, I was pretty crazy as a kid, you know, and, you know, I just wanted to go out and experience life and everything, and, you know, I just don't think those people ever see eye to eye. I mean, maybe we live in an age of pop culture and social media. I'm sure they'll find something to bond over, and that thing could possibly bring them together. It's just like, hey, that person's not so bad, you know.
How do you plan to continue to fight for equality?
Well, I have an idea of something that I want to do in my own free time, but I think that'll be something pretty cool, but I just have to get started on it. I have like everything written down, and I plan on filming sometime soon.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
I want to make videos just talking about being a free spirit, because I am a free spirit, but it's not just about me, it's just about, you know, my beliefs. But like, I just feel like other people have these beliefs, because I go around asking people, is that what humans do? Because people say, why would you do something like that, you know? And you know, we're not all raised the same way, you know. We all have different rules in your household and everything. But if you come from a broken home, I'm not saying I come from a broken home, but or if you like raised yourself or anything, you don't have the same rules as other people. You know, you just go out and you just take each day, day by day. You don't really have a plan or anything, you know. So I really want to make some videos talking about how that happens and like the experiences you have along the way. And you know, I feel like I could make a difference with it because I didn't come from a rich family. You know, I don't know what it's like to be rich. I don't know what it's like to have a nice house. You know, I would like to show the rich people what it was like for me growing up, you know, low middle class. And for the times that I did have riches in my life, in my lifetime, I would like to show the poor people how the rich people live. Because I feel like for the rich people, it's like kind of like having a mental illness. You have people who say, well, just get over it, you know? And it's like, that's easier said than done. Like, get over your depression. You can't just get over your depression, you know? And some people just have to like experience something like that. So I'm a theater major, so I'm gonna do my best to do my major make my major proud. I'm trying to make my major proud, you know, and I'm trying to use the arts to bring the world together, because that's what we're here for. We don't just do plays, we do people.
Do you think the world ever could come together?
Possibly, but I don't think so, unless everyone just like respects each other, because a hand wave here might mean hello, and that might be friendly, but down in like Antarctica, I don't know if there are like people down there or not, but down in like Antarctica, like that might mean like something bad, you know? Oh wait, I know that in Afghanistan or whatever, you don't use anything with your left hand because that's like satanic, and you also wipe your butt with that hand. So, you know, I don't think we'll ever see eye to eye with other countries, but it's a start. That's somewhere we can start.
Okay. Are there any other comments or concerns you'd like to express? All right, well, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
No problem.
You have a great day.
You too.